Okay, I suggest we get going. So, welcome everybody. My name is Tobias Larsson and I'm a professor in mechanical engineering. Also responsible for this session where Massimo Panarotto is going to present his findings in his Licentiate thesis, which is called Capturing Value in Conceptual PSS Design, where PSS stands for Product Service Systems. The process is that Massimo will present for some 35 minutes sharp or something like that. Then after that we have with us today Associate Professor Anna Öhman from Linköping University, and also an expert and one of the pioneers in this area of product service systems. And she's going to ask the tough questions and also make sure that she goes through the Licentiate thesis. And after that, we leave the words also to the audience for questions. Hopefully this session is going to be finished within or before 3, I guess. And then we will celebrate with some cake and things upstairs. By that, I give the word to Massimo.
Thank you so much, Tobias. So, welcome everybody and welcome to my Licentiate presentation. So, why has this research been needed? So the business climate has undoubtedly changed over the past, over the last 2 decades. So the entering a new market of new actors coming from the emerging countries, globalization, digitalizations, has undoubtedly changed the business market on the global scale. And this has challenged has challenged Swedish companies in many ways. So, for example, the recent bankruptcy of world-renowned Swedish companies such as Saab Automobile AD has led to many employees lay off, and its effects have been inevitably cascaded down to its supply chain as well. News from last week tell us that Spain, in Europe, Spain is the only country that is increasing its level of unemployment faster than Sweden. So this creates the challenge for Sweden in order to assure welfare to its people to rethink their industrial offering on the global scale. But so, why are we in this challenging situation nowadays in Sweden? So, manufacturing companies have focused and have been very, very successful over the years by providing products to the customer where the functionality was really, really good, functionality, performances, so what does the job was really, really good, and at affordable cost. So functionality and cost, they were the main carriers for customer value over the years. And all the development activities in Swedish manufacturing companies were about improving functionality, so improving performances and decreasing cost. But the question is it always the same? Is it always the case? So if we take another product, that is the Juicy Salif, designed by Philip Stark for the Italian company Alessi. So this is a lemon juicer that is not meant to squeeze lemons and to make juice. So, because if you try this product and if you try to squeeze lemon this product, they drop down in a very bad way and also take a lot of time. So the functionality of this product is not too high. But if we can see also the review from Amazon, people like this product and also and they are very warn other consumers that this product is not to make juice. So why do they buy this product? Because they consider, if you look at other reviews, they consider it stunning. They consider it intrinsically beautiful. So they buy this product basically to place it in the middle of the table and not for making juice. So probably for this picture, they probably squeeze the lemon with another juicer and just put the lemon up there and then the glass of lemon juice down there. So if we take, what is the value of this product? If we take the equation that we have seen before, so the functionality of this product scores very low on functionality, And the costs are pretty high because it costs $150 if you look at it on Amazon. So value is much, much more than just functionality. So we have the fact that sometimes, many times, value is often emotional and it affects our perception of the self. And so it's very emotional and intangible in some ways. So recent literature has tried to move beyond the notion of functional value in order to highlight, and here I take the definition by Lindstedt and Murenius. So they state that we as consumers, when we are purchasing our products or using our services, we always trade off the benefit that we perceive that we are going to have out of a product and the resources that we have to spend in order to get this product. So they highlight the fact that the benefits are often perceived. So as we have seen in the Jewish Salif, the benefits are sometimes mainly emotional. And also the other side, resources are not just cost, because they can be time, they can be the effort to get some product. Or if I have to make a simple example is, let's say we want to log into a website or social media, but we perceive that the level of information that this website is asking us is too much compared to what we perceive that is enough to get into to log into the website. Therefore, we skip to log into this website because we perceive that the amount of information is too much than what we perceive that is enough. So it's very important for Swedish manufacturing companies to shift their development activities or improve their development activities from providing products where the value is mainly on the product content towards adding more services on the product and towards adding more intangible value in their propositions, in their industrial propositions. So if you take, for example, a product that is a pure car and then a limousine service that we can say that the value of this is mainly the service content, then there is a huge opportunity, for example, in the automotive industry to explore what's in between these two different propositions. So, for example, explore car sharing, which is exploding now, especially in North America, or very recently the peer-to-peer car sharing, which is a process where private users rent out their cars to other private users. So it's very, very important to companies to explore these opportunities. But this creates two main questions that have been the focus of my research. So what are the challenges in designing for value in the view of the new business models such as PS's offerings? So those that we have seen before, they are classified around the concept of product service system. So this fact of creating new business models, adding services on the product content. But so this creates the problem of, okay, we have to provide value to the customer, how we design for value, for customer value. And how can the exploration of value provided by different combination of design and business model alternatives be supported during the development phases? Because what happens nowadays in the companies, in manufacturing companies, so these Swedish corporations, big corporations which develop very complex products, and they have very complex development, very long development processes. What they're trying to do is that they understand that they need to rethink their industrial offering. So they need to think about new services, think about car sharing, think about peer-to-peer car sharing, and they have departments that are devoted to think about it. So these departments, they can be product planning, marketing, or they are even called involved with soft products. So these departments, they are trying to think, okay, what new business ideas our customer will like? How can we innovate our business model and providing more value to the customer with a new business model? And on the other side, you have the engineering departments, which are thinking about what are the best physical artifacts, what are the best objects, products that the customer will really, really like. And the challenge here is to understand what is the best design option on the technical side combined to the best business model that will provide the highest value to the customer. So because the right choice of the business model, of the right technical solution could eventually provide a success for an entirely new business model for the company. And let me give you an example to explain this. So, in 1996, General Motors, the US car manufacturer, they developed OnStar. OnStar was a satellite-based system embedded in the car in order to be used as a safety means for the customer. But its functionality have been during the years just used as an aftermarket device, mainly for emergency calls. But in 2010, then General Motors started a partnership. 2012, sorry. General Motors started a partnership with Relay Rides, which is a car sharing platform. So is the website that is enabling to users to rent out their cars to other users. So now what happens is that through the use of Relay Rides, now customers, they can rent out their cars to somebody else using the OnStar system to lock and unlock the car door on distance by the use of mobile app, without so having the users that are passing the key to each other. So, and they are using the OnStar system. There was a system that was already embedded in the car. So, the right choice in 1996 to develop that OnStar system made General Motors now to be the first mover in this new business model that is the peer car sharing, and having a new revenue stream for the company. So the right choice here on the design side provided in years later the success of a new business model. But what happens is that most likely in 1996 General Motors, they didn't think about this peer-to-peer opportunity. They got luck. So they provided something that they thought that it was an aftermarket device, so providing some value to the customer who once in a life he was making this emergency call, and not providing any value anymore because now customer will probably use his mobile phone. But now this is transforming in a new entirely business opportunity just because of that right choice. So it's very important to understand these things as early as possible and before eventually the competitors. So where do we need to work on? So in the early design phases of product development, we have the very high opportunity to provide a better product to our customer, because we have a lot of opportunity to change our design, because our design is, so to say, just on paper. If we wait later in the design process, changes will be much harder or impossible or very costly, because the design, the architecture will be already defined, because we have already started to build the product. So it's important to spend a little bit more time in the very early design phases in order to understand how we can improve this product as much as we can. But we have also a problem with this working in the very early design phases, is that we don't have too much data about our product, because as I said, it's just on paper. So we have on the other side that if we wait to have more data about the product, then we will end up in a situation in which we won't be able to change the product itself. So in this case, having qualitative measurement of the goodness of the design is better than waiting for having quantitative measurements about the design. So I'm not the only one working on this. So there are two main frameworks in literature that are value-driven design and trace-based exploration. These frameworks, they are trying to provide a framework to engineers in order that every design configuration will pass through an evaluation stage where you evaluate the value that your design configuration, let's say a car seat, will provide to the customer, in order then to go back again and try to improve the design, and then going again in an iterative loop in order to provide the best design as possible to the customer. The problem with these frameworks is that they use still very, very quantitative data. So what they are trying to work on is too late in the design in the design phases yet. So we need some more quantitative approaches that are trying to bring this discussion as early as possible in the design phases, because then there we have the huge opportunity to improve our products. So where do I try to understand what these things about value, engineering, business models in the combination of that. I tried to explore these topics in the research project Sonnet, which is a Vinova project that was about, within the automotive industry, that was about redesigning a new car that weighs 40% less than an actual Volvo car. So in the project we were involved 39 partners, 30 from FKG, which is a network of Swedish automotive suppliers, 7 academic partners, and Volvo Car Corporation was a big sponsor in this project and had main engineers in the project. And you can see the logos of these companies. So what did I do in this project in these over the past 2 years? I observed 7 design workshops. So these engineers, there were around about 50 engineers every time. They were having regularly some design workshops, divided in teams. They were focusing on the redesign of specific subsystems of the car. Let's say the cockpit, the door, etc. Then I was there and I was observing how they discuss and explore customer value and how they were thinking about customer value in their design activities. Then I followed up 3 teams that they were respectively responsible for the redesign of the car seats, the car cockpit, and the car door. And so between one workshop and another, they were having some homework, so to say, between the team itself. And so I was following these meetings and these conversations they were having in the meantime between a workshop and another. And also there I tried to explore how they consider value when they are developing their subsystem in the car. Then I organized 3 workshops around the topic of value creation, with 9 exercises that were designed on the topic of value creation. And it's important to know that all these companies were involved in those design workshops. So around about 50 engineers every time for these 3 workshops, they were working on the exercises that I designed. And these exercises, I designed them in a way that permitted me to understand what they consider about value when they are developing, for example, a car seat, how often the word customer value was recurring in their discussion, and so on. And then I did 5 recorded interviews in order to strengthen my results. So I used design research methodology in order to frame my research, and the methods that I used and I described before, they can be classified around the topic of around the method of action research and case study research. And here you can see how the 3 appended papers in the thesis relate to the different phases of the DRM. Then I tried to assure the research quality and validity by testing the workability of my proposed solutions once established, potentially in an industrial setting, by having interaction with the engineers working into the project. So, but after this, so what did I understand in these workshops and these observations, these interviews? So I understood that designers' awareness of new trends in marketing, customer behavior, etc., is perceived very low. So they talk when they develop, let's say, a door. They talk often about performances. They talk often about cost. They talk mainly about weight. But what they very seldom talk, because it's very hard for them to understand what happens to this door or this seat if the company shifts its business models toward car sharing, for example. Or what will be the value of this door if in the future or in 10 years this car will eventually end up in a Chinese megacity with 40 million people. What will be the new needs for people in that situation? What will be the needs for the stakeholder in that kind of situation? This is very, very hard to engineers. So they talk often about performance, requirements, cost, weight, but they don't talk about these things. It's very, very hard for them. And this is mainly due to the fact that there is poor integration with the departments that are working on these things. So the departments that are discussing new business models and the departments that are working more close to the customer than engineers, there is very, very poor integration and collaboration with them. So we have from one side the business guys, so to say, and then on the other side we have the engineers. And this is very, very hard for them to be integrated and discussed together. So I found this gap. I found business guys, they're talking business models and they put figures on spreadsheets and stuff. And then on the other side we're engineers. They were talking about performances, technical requirements and cost. So I found this gap and I needed to bridge this gap. And so I had to think about, so how do I bridge this gap? And the answer to this was models and simulations. So models and simulations are well established in traditional mechanical engineering processes in order to understand the physical behavior of a component before the release on the market, or before, in this sense, before the race and so on. When it comes to innovation, the use of models and simulations is slightly different. So I take for this my favorite book when it comes to these things. That is Serious Play. They studied how the world's best companies, Apple and so on, use models and use simulations in order to innovate. And the main message of this book is that the main value of models and simulations when it comes to innovative work is not on the results that they give. It's not that if they tell the truth or not, but it's on the discussion that they trigger and generate. So often literature talks about boundary objects. So we use models as, so we need to have the people that have different backgrounds in order to have them discussing. Then you need a base that creates the discussion. And this is boundary objects. So it is a base where people can look at something and they can start a discussion, oh, how can we improve this thing? Just because you have a base on which founding your discussion upon. So my idea was, okay, we have the business guys, we have the engineers. Why don't we use value models and simulations in order to create these boundary objects, in order to have these two worlds that are using different languages and they are talking another language than they are talking about. They have really different backgrounds and interests. Why don't we use value models in order to have them discussing and discussing the value of what they are developing? Then I needed another model, and I had to find a model. And what model did I choose? I chose CODA. CODA is a qualitative value-driven design approach. CODA stands for Customer Optimized Design Analysis, and is a method that it resembles a standard quality function deployment matrix, but it has a more sophisticated. It has a more sophisticated way of mapping how the design requirements of a product satisfy customer needs. So CODA uses basically three non-linear functions in order to map design requirements and customer needs. So they use maximization. So there are, for some requirements, we are interested to have them the maximum as possible to be satisfied. If we take the battery life on a laptop, we are interested to have this battery life to be as much as possible to be satisfied. The higher you have the life, the higher you will be satisfied. The other one is minimization. So for some other requirements, we are interested to have them as minimum as possible. For example, the fuel consumption on a jet engine. So we need to, if we want to have the fuel consumption the minimum as possible to be satisfied. The other one is optimization. So we need sometimes the design requirement to be into a certain parameter for being satisfied. So the example is the keyboard size on a mobile phone. So we don't want the keyboard to be so small because then it will be very hard to touch the buttons, and we don't want to have it too big because then it will be too hard to push, very inefficient to push the buttons. So we need the keyboard to be optimized around our anatomical dimensions. So this code does this modeling. And then how did I try to measure the value of a design solution compared to the customer needs? So I collected this into an Excel tool, and then but I can describe conceptually what this modeling does. So you start with customer needs. So you start retrieving customer needs, and you start retrieving customer needs that the customer expects, such as transportability. If you're talking about we are talking now about a car. So if you have a car, you expect the car to bring you from point A to point B, right? Then other ones are security and safety, something that you expect in a car and that engineers talk about, so they understand these things. What you then add, you try to add needs that the customer has, but that doesn't expect to have into a car, and the engineers do not often talk about. So for example, profitability. So when you have a car, you don't expect the car to give you money. You expect to pay money for having the car. You don't expect the money the car to give you money. So adding this need, will be an exciter, we can say, for the customer. And this can be a need that the engineers do not often talk about. So this could open the mind of engineers. Then I use design value attributes. Design value attributes, they are generic measures that key metrics that define how well the system, in this case the car, the goodness of a system, in this case the car. Then what I do is that we map the design value attributes against this need using positive and negative correlation factors. So for example, it can be that the vehicle maximum speed of the car, it positively impacts transportability, but it negatively impacts the need for safety. Then what I do is that you take the design components, the design parameters of a single component, such as the car dashboard, such as length and thickness, and then you map with the same system against the design value attributes. So now we can basically understand the value of that changing something in those design parameters will have on customer value. It has to be noted that this way of assessing the value of a design component to the customers and to the stakeholders is not made by myself. So this has been done, developed and tested by University of Technology in a project within aerospace using an intercase in an jet engine as study case, and also by University of Southampton in the UK using a motorcycle helmet. But it has to be noted that also the CODA approach doesn't come from my mind. It comes from University of Southampton that developed it. So what did I do? And so what I do is instead adding the fact of business model design. So the idea was to use the same system, but then to add, if we are change something in the business model, how this affects the design of the technical artifacts that we have to develop. So what I use is that I use business model value attributes. So they are key metrics that define the goodness of a business model, and they can be applied to business models of different kinds. Then what I use the same system, that they map them against the customer needs using positive and negative correlation factors. So what I can do with this is we can do high-level analysis about if we change something in the business model, how do we need to change our design in this case. So for example, what we can understand is that if you shift towards peer-to-peer, then you increase the number of borrowers because you are interested to have people getting into more people borrowing your car, because then you positively affect the need of profitability for the customer, right? So you are interested to increase the number of borrowers in the car. But on the other side, you negatively affect the need of security because you get more people. You have more people that are getting into your car. So you need to. This suggests the integration of, for example, a real-time positioning system, embedding a real-time positioning system into the car in order to then satisfy again this need of security. Or, for example, it can be that if you are developing a seat and you shift the business model towards a car sharing system, so you have more people that are getting into the car again than just having the customer that is driving the car, let's say 1 hour every day. You have lots of users that are using the car all the hours of the day. So now you have the seats, for example. You can understand that the seats, their quality will degrade much faster than a car in a traditional business model. So this will suggest you on a design component level the need of increasing the material of the seat or finding another solution. Because if you shift the business model, this will affect your seat in this way. Or what you can do also, so you can, in this way, mapping the business models of your company, but also you can model, if you are a supplier, you can model the business models of your customer or your customer's customer. So let's say if I'm developing that intercase, so that will go in an aircraft, then I can simulate the fact that what happens if in 30 years low-cost airlines such as Ryanair will start the peer-to-peer aircraft sharing between, so they will rent out the aircrafts from the big from the big airlines for doing very, very small flights. This will change completely the operational performance of the aircraft, and then the interface has to be designed completely in a different way. So this will permit, even though they are kind of high-level assessment, but permit engineers that they have never talked about it to start talking about it. And in the future, the idea is also we need to make the models a little bit more complex in order to make more complex analysis. So the idea is that in the future, we will be able to, the idea is that with this we can, for example, understand if it's better to have something else to improve some services, or if it's better to have a technological innovation to solve some specific problems. One example is probably better. So if we have a call center for customer complaints, then we are interested to design that call center in a way that retrieves and deals better with customer complaints. But maybe we have a technological solution on the design side that could avoid the fact that the customer will complain. So we can eventually understand that the value of this call center might not be, so there's no way of improving the service with a technological solution we can avoid to have the service. Or on the other side, we can understand that sometimes it's better to have something as a service instead of a product because of those emotions. If you take, for example, when we get into a hotel and we go to the reception, then we probably don't want to have an electronic voice and a computer that tells us, oh, welcome, to push this button and so on. So you want still a personal relationship with a human being. So you can do this analysis that probably sometimes in that case the technological solution is not the best for giving value to the customer, and still it's better to have the service. But this will be possible with a more complex way of modeling, because this now we can do this modeling. So the last we can say the last result of my thesis is to design. Oh, this is the model. They can be cool, but we need to design how this could work in an industrial setting. And then we started to design the process. I started to design the process of how this could work in an industrial setting. And so we have many phases with different actors involved, but I can describe them very briefly. But so we have. It starts with idea generation phases. We get into the same room business guys and engineers, and we let them work with easy to use tools such as scenario-based design or a business model canvas. The purpose of this is just going for quantity. So it doesn't, these engineers and business guys, they are welcome to come up with possible business scenarios as possible. And it's not important that they go into the details. It's important that they give the ideas of how this business scenario, they think that this business scenario could work. Then we take all these scenarios are taken by two experts, one from the business side and one from the technical side, that they will act as value managers, and then we start going to, then we go to managers in order to retrieve those value attributes that we talked about before. And then what they will do is to go across the supply chain to retrieve value sensitive information. They can be the forecast of the peer-to-peer in the future, or they can be direct feedback from customers, and so on. So then after this information, they can go again back to the designers and compute the value models that I presented before in this way, because now we have some kind of information that can back up the numbers that we put in the models. And this is done for mainly arriving at a value report. So it is a report that we presented on the decision gates, where the decisions are taken by managers. But then we can present this report where we can alongside the technical and cost information about the design solutions or different design solutions. Then now we can put the value informations alongside these other documents. And so the managers at the decision gates will have now, instead of just having the technical information, the cost information, now we have also the value information, so that we can base their decisions also on the value of their design solutions, of the design solution proposed. So conclusions. Without the challenges, I take back my research question. So without the challenges of designing for value in the view of new business models such as PSS offerings, there is no base in which this discussion can be triggered. So this discussion, they do not even start, because there is no base to start the discussion. Or the discussion, they start really at coffee break level, but they will never get into reality. There is poor integration with the departments working on this, mainly because business model innovation is a very, very new topic, especially in big corporations, manufacturing corporations, but also there is poor integration because of culture, etc. How can the exploration of value provided by different combination of design and business model alternatives be supported? And here, the value modeling and simulation gathered in a software application is a software enabled. Future work. As I said, improve and refine the models in order to make more complex analysis. Autumn 2013, test this approach using first master students that we have in our courses, value innovation courses. Then we have the monetary benefits. They need to be turned into a more concrete term. So that profitability need is still too qualitative, because the value of being profitable, it depends on how much money you get. So we need a little bit more complex of the monetary benefits that the customer will eventually get. Another one is that the business model innovation can reduce or eliminate cost drivers for the customer. We need to model this. So business model innovation can eliminate or reduce cost drivers that are unwanted by the customer. Let's say insurances and other cost drivers. So it will be interesting to, instead of just modeling what happens in the value side, or what happens also the cost side, just by changing the business model. And the other one is, of course, test the approach across different sectors, so aerospace, construction equipment, but also more service-oriented companies such as mobile network operators. And before thanking you all, let me just share the lesson learned, hopefully, during these 2 years. So the first is that, lesson learned that basically made me end up in despair so many times, and also made me to be in the need sometimes to cheer up with some sips of whiskey. So the first lesson that I learned is what I call the young PhD student paradox. So that you need to ask to know, but you need to know to ask. So sometimes during these 2 years, especially at the beginning, I observed so many things that now I understand that they were so valuable for me in order to understand the research, in order to give an answer to the research questions. But I didn't understand the research questions I was going to work on, they were those that I presented today, because I discovered this a little bit later on. So, but then I needed to have those observations at the beginning in order to understand that the research questions I wanted to solve, they were the ones that I presented today. So this has been quite frustrating sometimes. But if I can say, I should have tried in many cases to ask a little bit more, even very silly questions, instead of ending up just in despair in my office. So I should have sometimes just, even at the beginning, just very asking silly questions in order to get feedbacks. And then probably I could have understand things a little bit earlier, and I could have been, my results at this point could have been a little bit, could have developed a little bit more. So with this, thank you all of you. And
I think we leave the word to Anna.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much, Massimo. This was a great presentation, I must say, to start with. I don't know how many of you had already time to read the book in total, and I think if you have done so, I think you agree with me that quite a lot was much more put to the point here in your presentation, and I think it's a clear and well-written thesis, but it was even clearer here in your presentation. So some of my questions were actually already presented answers to in your presentation, but I might come back to them anyway. So my role today is then to actually quite systematically go through this report, and I will do that to help the supervisor to make a decision, perhaps already today, whether Massimo or not would deserve his licentiate degree. So I am not the one who is judging finally if you can succeed to licentiate degree or not, but my work is to go through and ask questions to you so that we understand what you understand. And I have quite many questions, but I will also leave the word open for you if you have questions too. I find it a very interesting topic, so I suppose some of you also have questions that you are thinking of. I have prepared a PowerPoint slideshow, but I will not use that one because I think it will stick to yours, but I will sometimes look a little bit at my notes here. So if we start...
can I just sit down then?
You can have a share. I don't know if you need to go, of course.
That's okay, I can just
We
sit
also
down.
have the movie camera here. I don't know if that's fine, if you can see. Too. And perhaps, Massimo, you could take up your first slide with the title. I think that's a good way to start. That's where I started anyway. So, yeah, this is a good review.
Yeah, I can recall many of the things.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will be fast for me or what.
So, this is a very dear field for me. I've been working a very long time with this, and especially about the value creation process and connected engineering. So I think I thank you very much for inviting me to do this job, and it was really much appreciated. So if we start with the title, I think you have captured well, using the word from your title, what it is all about. I got a copy without the title, and so I read it through, and then I sort of guessed what would be the title of this job. And I think this was it right on spot. And I'm glad that you add perspectives from the automotive supply chain, because there might be some special conditions from that industry in your thesis, and we'll come back to that. So the outline of my work here is that we'll discuss the content of the report, and I think the best way is we have a continuous dialogue. So we will not wait to the discussion, till the end, but we have it intertwined. So if we start with the formalia, we started with the title and then go over to the formalia. I think you have a good language in your writing. It's easy to read. It's the flow throughout. It's a clear structure. The headings is the content is what you expect it to be. You manage well to express your line of thought, and you have a relevant frame of reference. I think it's very good. We move over to the purpose. Maybe you can follow with your...
Yes.
So
Okay. You mean with the physical?
No, just on the slide.
Okay.
You had the purpose on the slide.
What's this one?
No, the purpose.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, objective.
The research.
The research question. Just look at the research question. Because you say that the thesis has two main goals. The first, and it's not exactly what is said here, but you have to read the book. The thesis has two main goals. The first is to provide an understanding of the challenges when considering the value, the value different design alternatives provide in the conceptual phase of complex product development, taking the automotive industry as a case study. So that's the first goal, to provide an understanding. And I think that you're giving us a broader understanding. I think that goal is okay. The second is to explore how to support a multidisciplinary design team take value-oriented decisions when dealing with the development of a product service offering. To explore how to support.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And if I give my comment directly, I think you do that as well, but we will come back to the discussion about the method, how you choose to fulfill that.
Yeah.
So that was the goal. And then talking about the method, we can leave the research questions on there, I think.
Okay.
So, you mentioned that you had this list about all the things you have been doing. And I was wondering about the data collection when I read this, because you say what you have done, but you have not listed as you did in the presentation now. And you, well, maybe you can switch to that slide. We can look at all this.
Yeah. This one?
There it was.
Okay.
Yes. So my question then to you is this active participation that you have been through. How do you think it has affected the way you reached the goals?
Well, for me, it has been very useful because the problem wasn't defined from the beginning. So the problem wasn't, we are thinking about new business models, and then you have to help us to understand how do we need to change the design if we change the business model. This, as I mentioned before, the main goals of the project were mainly engineering. So it was to reduce the weight of the car. Then, especially at the beginning, because I didn't mention that Volvo took over Saab, because it started with Saab. Saab at the beginning was interested in everything. So they were interested in technology, but also business model, and also the Volvo later. But the main problem, the main goals were technical, and so I was trying to observe these engineers, how they were talking about value, in order to understand what was the problem that I thought, that I started to understand that was a problem that I wanted to solve, based also on personal interests.
Yes.
I would say.
And the question I had when reading sort of through between the lines, my was thinking was, how much were you a researcher in this participative actual research, and how much were you an engineer solving a problem? Could you explain a little bit about the balance between these two?
Yeah, I think I was mainly a researcher because I'm a mechanical engineer, but I'm rather young, and I never worked in the automotive industry. And I like cars, but not that much. So I actually think that I'm really where I'm working on. So I'm really in this balance between engineering and business. So I couldn't give too much contribution on the technical side because my knowledge is about engineering at this level of detail about developing a new car door. It's very they were out of my. So I think I was there mainly just I was there observing, and then I was there as they called me the value expert sort of because they were oh yeah, but customer value he will fix it somehow. But of course that was a joke. It was more observing. So I was there mainly as an observer in the workshops that I just participated in, not in the ones that I led.
And then some of them you led, and that way you also changed the direction of the activities, of course.
Yes.
So there you were more really participating.
Yes.
But as you explain, I'm more as an expert or in the research or almost consultant role. Yeah.
So,
then I thank you for that answer because my question was how much you were sort of an engineer, the same as the ones you were studying.
Yeah.
What I might lack from your writing about the data collection, I mean, we can get here what is the concept, but we get very little in the writing.
Yeah.
So, an advice if you would continue with these cases would be to have more text.
Yeah.
If you feel that text would not really fit into the content of your nice flow in your writing, you might put it as appendix.
Yeah.
But it would have been good to know how often did you talk and to which engineers? I mean, you don't need to give names exactly, but maybe roles, and how many of them were sort of recurring.
Yeah.
So that's something that I sort of was looking for.
Yeah. I'll just take notes because I have a notebook. So.
This is also a dialogue to. I will try to be constructive.
Yeah. That's
the
good.
next step is you aim to continue, which I hope you will do. Because actual research is very, I think it's a powerful tool. You can get much insight, information about the subject. You get to know people, you earn trust, and you get very open information. But it also, of course, is a little bit dangerous when you then have to write about it and look at it systematically and analytically.
Yeah.
So how you do that balance can be very good to explain, both a little bit more in the methodology section and also with some lists and so on, or review about. Then I have to continue on the methodology part. You say that you have conducted case studies.
Yeah. And
my question there is, of course, which were the cases? And what was the sort of unit of analysis?
Yeah.
You use Dean as a source, and Dean is quite careful that you should define what is a case for you. So if you would a little bit elaborate on
for case studies, I think that so I was observing, but I wasn't in this design workshop. I wasn't, so to say, interfering too much in their work because I was just an observer. Then I needed to start instead asking more, so having instead a way of following someone specific, because in these workshops there were 7 teams and 50 engineers, so I was going a little bit around this, so some minutes with this team and some other team, and then I needed more time to understand a specific team, and those were the cases. So for cases I intend, the case for me was the team, that it was also a subsystem of the car. So the case for me was the team.
Okay.
Yeah, it was also the subsystem, that because there was the door, but there was more the team of engineers around the door.
Because that was my question, to be more specific. If it was the development project, the design team, and the development project, there were 3 of them, redesigning the car seat, and the car cockpit, and the door. So the question is, 3 cases, or is it, but you said it was rather 7 cases, the 7 teams.
Yes. Yeah, it's just, I differentiate them because, here is, but here I follow them up also in the homeworks. So I started, because we had, for example, SharePoint, where they were sharing the data between the teams. And then I was I was logging into their documentation and tried to look also what this documentation was about.
Yeah.
But this was more specific for the team because I had to
Yeah.
then to focus on a specific team.
So that was tools for the team to work with. So that was
Yeah.
part of the case. And because if I understand the unit of analysis, then I can understand a bit better
Yeah.
what data you are collecting.
Yeah.
Because my question was, what importance does it have if you study a team or if you study a project?
Yeah.
Would you like to try to answer on that?
Yeah, for me, it is mainly being because being one researcher, so I didn't have 50 PhD students that were working under my arms, so to say. So I had, for me, a development project. If you just try to remain on the development project, that in this case was rather big, then you might not go into you might not understand really the details because you can't focus on some specific people, and it becomes that you are just hanging around and you are talking with people at the coffee machine, but it can't permit you to understand really the nuances, so to say, of the development activity.
Good. So what you're answering now is actually that one single person was not your unit of analysis.
No.
It was a team.
Yes.
And you've already said it wasn't the project. And I think this is important. If we look again at your research questions,
Yeah.
you could look at that. Because depending on what you study, you can answer or not.
Yeah.
You had this at the end, I mean, what is the question?
Yeah.
And if we look at them again now, and we know now that you have studied the team, so what are the challenges for designing for value? That is sort of regarded from the team perspective.
Yeah.
And how can the exploration of value provided by different combination of design and business model scientists is supported to a team?
Yes.
And why I'm sort of hanging up on this is because this is important when you discuss the quality and validity of your research. So if you want to take this further, I would like you to consider this in your writing too. Because if you study automotive projects, then you will know a lot about automotive projects. If you study design teams, maybe the industry is not that important.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can look at different design teams in different industries that differ much.
Yeah.
But I think what you have asked and where your answer is and the method you have chosen is very good. Maybe I would have liked it to be a little bit more clear in the writing, but it's fine like that. So, then I have another tricky question.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if you have a picture of that. Your research framework. You use the design research methodology.
Yeah.
Suggested by Blessing and Schaff.
Yeah, I have it here, but yeah,
it's not here.
Yeah.
That's fine. And in the book you can see the more detailed picture of the model by Blessing and Schaff. So the model is, if we look at horizontally on the figure, research clarification. The next step is descriptive study 1, prescriptive study, and descriptive study 2.
Yeah.
And they, in their model, is about setting up the goals in the first one, gain a deeper understanding in the second, and to develop support in the third, and evaluate in the fourth. And in your papers and in your work now, you have come as far as to prescriptive in paper C. And then my question, which I would like you to think about, to answer is, in what way was it prescriptive? And to whom?
Yeah.
If you understand my question. You have probably been thinking a lot about this.
Yeah, I think so. It was, for me, it is prescriptive because so here I try to prescribe a reason to my patient in the sense that, and the patient for here I intend again, a design team, but they are different design teams. That they are in different, but they are very not spread conceptually in the language. So if we take the business guy and engineers, we're still talking about teams because they work in teams, but they are, for the moment, my patients, they are that they are so far from each other, and they are talking, one is talking one language and the other one is talking another completely different language. So for me, it was the prescription that I gave to my patients was, you can use these models and simulations in order to start your discussions. So my prescription is, but it's not a descriptive study because I cannot really say if my patients are getting better or worse. So for the moment I said to my patients, oh, this could be the solution, but I need to test if my patients will be better.
Good, I like your answer. And I think maybe you should develop a bit further this research framework. I mean, it's not yours, it is proposed by these authors, but perhaps you can make a modification further on. Because if you make a prescriptive study, I think you should validate your model before you give the recipe.
Yeah.
I mean, to try it on several
This is what,
teams.
So this is the reason why we use master students, because then we can, in a controlled environment where we already know the answer. So to say, if we design the test in a good way, then we already know, because we are a little bit more, not me, but for my colleagues, and I'm following up them, but they are more expert than me, so they already know what the good solution could be, and then you can test if with this process, the student, they will arrive at the solution that could be good. Then if we see some positive effects of our lab rats, then we can start going into the patients and try to see if this will be beneficial.
And you can increase the number of patients from student environments to industrial environments.
Yes.
And so on. In the original model, there are many arrows going like that, and perhaps you should make your own figure about how your process is sort of iterative and how far you have come and how many iterations you have. I think prescriptive can be a little bit of a dangerous word in research, because it could mean that you have really tested these models so far that you can be quite sure to prescribe it.
Yeah, this is why I put an entire circle on prescriptive study, but it will be actually a 3/4 because it's not.
Probably you will stay in that round for
exactly.
And then the next step is evaluation. So you go to the fourth step and you go back to maybe even to the first step, and then you take them again and so on. I think it's a nice model, but I think one should handle it with care. And I think what do I mean by applying this and by using these words. And then my question, I think we come into the results then. So we can keep that picture a little bit, because in your prescriptive phase there, you have developed a tool, or what would you call it? Because my question is, what is the main contribution in your words?
Yeah, for me it is both this tool, so this is a system, basically it is a system of, in an Excel sheet, in an Excel tool, then there are different matrices that are somehow, through the use of that code, that they are interrelated, they are going into each other in some ways. So I think that is part of the solution, but also the other one is the process that they show. So because a tool is a tool, then we need to understand how this could be work once established in an industrial setting, because then we can give this tool to the industry. Yes, but what we do with that? If we don't have, if you don't have those phases in which you first you go for quantity, very high level but scenario generations, very high level but creative, then you pick the two experts that are working on that, so you complement the competencies and so on. So then, for me, the main contributions are both the tool, but the tool is a tool, and then the process. The design. I've been, in this sense, a designer, because I designed this process alongside a normal development process that is made by activities and decision gates and so on. So alongside this development process, I put the value creation process that is just alongside the normal development process. And so this is the idea that it doesn't change much for, it's not, it is a process that engineers are already familiar with, and every development process, I think. Somehow.
Good. Yeah, I asked what are the contribution, and you already said that you fulfilled your goals, and of course, there you have a lot of contribution about this increased understanding and so on. But in fact, your chapter 5 contains a lot. And as a reader, I'm not sure about what is your contribution. What is data presentation? What is analysis? And what is your conclusions? Because in the concluding chapter 6, there you go at a quite high level again.
Yeah.
So there we don't really understand where is this process and this model and this software tool. We sort of lose that in chapter 6, and we have to go back to chapter 5.
Yeah.
And now we got this, and here comes my questions, which you almost already answered. So we can have a look at them again. This process that was, what do you call it? Tool developed by Southampton and Luleå University.
Probably with mine, or you want the entire?
Yeah, you can have with yours.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think this was not really clear in my reading.
Yeah.
What was developed by you, and what was something where you start, or that was it developed in parallel by Southampton and Luleå?
Yeah. So Southampton, they basically developed the CODA approach first, and they used a motorcycle. So they had a product that it is. So they use a product that is a product by itself. Luleå instead extended it into a complex. So the motorcycle element is not a complex system. Instead, Luleå, they put the fact of developing it into a more complex systems, where you have, it's not the same company, more or less. In motorcycle, you have the company that is responsible for almost everything. Instead, in Luleå, they have Volvo Aero, in this case, that is responsible for that component, but then you have the aircraft, then you have the engine, then you have the aircraft, and then you have the airlines and so on. So they extended this into a more complex system. So in fact, for the motorcycle, you have just the first two matrices, because it's very simple, because the product is rather simple. Instead, Luleå, they extended it into the third matrix, we can say, because the system is way more complex.
Okay. Yeah, so I got an answer to that question by the presentation.
Yeah, I think this is, I recognize that this was a really weak spot in my thesis.
Yeah, maybe not really finalized, because it would have been good to know what was done and where is my contribution.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in chapter 5, but maybe then in chapter 6, explaining your contribution. And it's the same thing with, you continue with, what is it called? The design merit window that you mentioned, it will be published soon. And my question is, by whom?
Yeah, so
because it seems it's a very interesting tool. It's a further development of QFD.
Yeah, here I made a little bit of confusion. So I think in that sense I intended mine, because in the papers I don't have yet the description of this tool in detail. So I wanted to say that it is myself that will publish the fact that we will have that for Luleå and for Southampton, and that we will have this from BTH. And then what I wanted to write, and that I really failed on that, was that it will be myself that will publish this, because this was work that we're going in parallel with the thesis writing. So, and I have these things that hopefully I will publish now for the next conference.
It's very nicely written, and it's very good that you have that. But perhaps in the methodology section or so, it could have been clear that it was part of a parallel process of developing tools together with the others.
Yeah.
Just to make it clear, because otherwise, I thought actually these were sort of sources from literature that were picked.
Yeah.
But now you explain that they were part of the same project.
Yes.
So that could be
a
strength for you, because you're very clear in other parts. You're clear, this was my contribution, this was somebody else.
Yeah, so what I did is, I mean, the fact of thinking about it in the automotive industry, it's made by myself. But of course it has been because I'm in the network, so to say, of those that they applied it for the motorcycle. So it wasn't the same project. The idea of applying to the project was made by myself. So, but of course, I was with them that they were working on it in parallel in their other projects. And then you start to understand that you are dealing with the same problems more or less because you're complex systems and engineers. And then I applied to my case.
I think your results become much stronger now that you're talking about it in this way. Very good. I have another question. Yeah, I think you have that picture. It's before, on page 37. It's about the business model innovators.
Yeah.
I think you have it on your slideshow.
Yeah.
But that was also a question I have. It is yours. Now you presented as if it was a starting point from literature.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, this was...
Because I think this is an important contribution. My question was, how can we describe value in this setting between the design innovators, the business model innovators, and then we have those who should gain from this value?
Yeah.
The customers, suppliers.
Yeah, I think... So here I presented, so in the thesis I presented as a result, because this... It is, so to say, so what I differentiated between the two pictures from being a result and from being a...
I think this is sort of a result on a conceptual level.
Yeah. Then what I ended, so in the picture and the result, I have the arrows that are connecting this.
Yeah.
So my idea is that...
Exactly.
Yeah. So if I use this as an introduction because this is what I understood also by having interaction with other companies because we are involved at the same time in other projects. So I understood that you have this, but the result is that then how to combine this. And so this is why I differentiated the two pictures by the lines that are connecting design and business models.
Then I understand. This figure 11.
Yes.
You can take that question about the value function.
Yeah.
You already showed one here in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think it's the next slide, isn't it?
I think it was the beginning, right?
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah.
Or function and cost, and that was the old one.
Yeah.
And then today it's more perceived benefit.
Yes.
Over somehow an effort from the customer.
Yeah.
If it's total expenditure or if it's somehow customer resources. But at one spot you use the sum of needs.
Yeah.
And as a function of design and business model. And I didn't really understand that.
Yeah, I think...
On page 38.
Yeah.
Sum of needs.
Yes.
And it's in its result.
Yeah, because that is...
have you developed something new there?
I think that is a sort of more, so to say, because that equation that we have seen before by Linstedt and Borenius is very theoretical. Yeah. We cannot we cannot build a model on that equation because with our perceived benefits and with our resources, time and effort and I don't know, risk of perception after the website is not is asking too much information. So this was instead the ones that I wrote there is more, so to say, operational value. How? So it is just confined mainly on the numerator of that equation, so the benefits. And it was operationally, so what we try to do is that we try to understand that the benefits for the customer are the needs. Yeah. So to build the model, then is for us, so it for our interpretation of the customer, because Lindstedt actually in his in the value model, he describes the fact that his equation is not operational. So that equation is very good to understand that the value is not just function and just cost, but he said that it's not operational in this sense. You cannot build a model out of it. So they call it the value model, but it's more theoretical description. Instead, ours, yeah, because it is what also Luleå and Southampton does, is that they say that the benefits are needs. So the more we can satisfy customer needs, the more we provide value to the customer.
Good. I think you said one important word, satisfy customer needs.
Yeah.
I think that is what I'm missing in this equation.
Okay.
The value is the sum of needs, but the value is the sum of
Satisfaction of,
of customer needs.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be? Otherwise it's just total needs.
Yes. I have to say that actually my whiteboard, I think I have still that equation up there, and in my whiteboard there is summation of satisfaction of needs. That is design of design of business model. I think that at that time I was really so freaked out. I freaked really out with the thesis that.
But I'm glad I asked about that otherwise, because otherwise I would go home and not get understood it. I mean.
Yeah, I think actually my original equation in my mind it was satisfaction of needs.
Satisfaction, because there you have a business potential.
Yeah.
So it could be okay also if you change value into business potential. If there are needs out there that are not satisfied, then you have a potential to provide services or products.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
So we're still at the result just to understand, because I think it's very valuable what you have come up with, so that's why I really want us to discuss and to understand. You talk at some points you talk about working with persona as a tool. But I haven't found a description of how that was done. Maybe it is within this.
Yeah, I think.
You have a picture of a person there with needs. But in what way did you work with personas?
Yeah, I worked with personas first in the exercise. So this was one of the exercises. Actually, it was my first exercises of those one. It was working with personas. So working with. I have it actually. I think I have it in the scenario, in the state of the art that I have scenario-based design.
Yes,
yeah. So, I mean, it is a little bit mixed. So in this sense, it will be it is mixed on, I mean, not intentionally, but because it is a combination of a lot of things. So the idea is that you use personas here. So very easy to use tools where you have engineers and business guys that are coming into the same room maybe for the first time. And then from where do we start from? And you have the use of personas in this sense is the idea of having something very easy to use, but that permits to generate a great quantity of, so you can potentially generate many of these guys up here. So you can generate
many of the needs, I suppose.
Yes.
That then could be developed into.
Yeah. So the idea is to use these personas to have something very easy to use in these phases that are really fuzzy, so to say. But you have the idea of here is not to go into is not to go into the details of this, because it will be taken farther on by the experts, two experts. But here is to go for a quantity and generating then the business, you can have the business guy that suggests this wow factor. So they are very easy to use, and the scenario-based design is using them all the time, so they have also a sort of scientific validity also, the use of these tools.
Good. Yeah, I like that you have infused that into your model, and I like your answer now that you said that you mixed work groups with engineers and business people, because that was the challenge.
Yes.
That they needed both perspectives.
Yeah, because then the idea is that with these scenarios that here, as I said before, there are two different worlds that they speak different languages. But when it comes to the idea is that the first phase, you just use something very easy to use where you are free, because later on this will be broken down into the models. But at the beginning, they can have, they have just to have fun, so to say. So the idea here, just in this space, is to have them. And then also the value piece of having this is that engineers probably they will remember, oh, you remember that peer-to-peer thing that we talked about, and now it's coming again into the model, and we still see this name peer-to-peer car sharing. And the business guy, they explained what the peer-to-peer car sharing is, so they can recall this because they did it. So here they might recall the fact that they were talking about this at the beginning.
Communication tool as well as a storytelling tool.
Yeah. So the idea is actually that if you use, for example, business model canvas, my idea in the future will be if we are able to plot this value, then you can just use a very, you can click on some design configuration that has a specific model, and if you want to understand which business model is associated to this configuration, then you just click on it, and you can see the business model canvas that is. So you see peer-to-peer car sharing, and this explains what the peer-to-peer car sharing is more on a detail level with which partners you intend to use and so on.
That's very good. I think that's an important part of this.
Yeah, I think, I didn't put it in the future work, but I think an important part of this will be also the communication of these values also during the phases.
Yeah. Good. So then I've asked my questions about the results, and I think you have explained very well. So we're going to the next step, and perhaps if you want to show your slide.
Yeah.
You already have some thoughts about that, and it's also quite well written. Perhaps I should start with a difficult question first, and then I have some more like discussion things. You say at the end under future work, it's one. That in fact a new business model can achieve monetary benefits, and a new business model would then be the PSS business model, can achieve monetary benefits such as reduce costs or generate new revenue streams. And my question is, what if it is the other way around? Could it be sometimes that a new business model where you take a lot of things into consideration early on, you put business people and engineering people together and they work with personas and they invent so many things, and then you develop it. And what if it's not a good business model? What if it's not profitable? How can you address that?
Yeah, the idea is that.
Have you thought of that for your future work?
Yeah, I think
I mean, you stuck with the stage gate model for product development, a generic product development model. So I suppose you have go and no-go decisions. But have you thought of building in this? Yeah,
I think this is what somehow what the modeling tries to do. So it is then if the function is that value is the satisfaction of needs, that is function of design, but also business models.
Yeah.
So here you can understand that by this, you can model the fact that if a business model, if we take the fact that the business model will be successful if it provides customer value, if we take this main assumption, that is the main assumption that we do, and also ocean strategy and so on. So here we can evaluate if the business model is a good business model based on how much it satisfies customer needs. Because it can be that if I have, for example, if I increase the number of borrowers, in the peer-to-peer solution, then I increase profitability. But for example, I undermine here. I don't put it. But for example, the need of availability, because you have some other that is renting your car, and if you need a car, you don't have a car. So it can be that here, depending on the model, it can be that if the need for availability is much more than the need of profitability, then the peer-to-peer car sharing might not be the best solution, unless then you make. Again, if you want to push the peer-to-peer solution because you believe somehow that it can be good, then you might coming up with a new innovation where you try to innovate then the business model to make the peer-to-peer car sharing to work. For example, having the opportunity for you that if you have your car rent out to someone else, but you need your car you care about somebody else's car very at a super cheap price. So you are interested to borrow your car because eventually, in the worst case, you can borrow something, for example, for free or for some other. So you can help also business guys, and this is one of the feedback that they got, that it is both ways.
Yeah.
You can also help business guys that if
To
they
avoid
want,
the bad business model.
yeah, or to improve, or to try, if they really want to push a business model, try to understand how they could iterate.
Yeah.
And again, we go
Make
through
it
the,
work.
yeah.
Good. So then it was probably just a formulation there that maybe you should write or avoid non-profitable business models.
Yeah.
Good. So that was sort of the last tricky question I had. I think
Okay.
maybe this one was also tricky, but my question was about the future work, the TSS, and what about open innovation efforts? Because now we have talked about TSS and to work with customer needs and all that, but still within the company. So the business guys are also employed by the same company.
Yes.
What about working directly with customers or with suppliers or partners, technology advisors, or something like that?
Yeah,
Have
I
you
think.
thought about that?
Yes, I did. Actually, I think that this model, you can. I mean, the idea of this model is actually, and this is what Luleå did with because they work in a really long supply chain.
Yeah, okay.
And that was because with this modeling, then you can have the supplier that collaborates. It is a way also to increase the collaboration between the OEM and the business and the supplier, because you and actually the power of this model is actually for a supplier, because let's say we go back to that OnStar system that I presented before. Let's say that OnStar system was developed by a supplier. Let's have this hypothesis. But so, for example, if you have this model, then you understand, then you can, if you develop the OnStar system and you go to General Motors and you say, oh, I have this really cool satellite base for security, for safety, and then General Motors will say, no, because you just want me to buy your stuff. Instead, with this business model, the supplier can say, but think about the fact that if you shift your business model towards peer-to-peer car sharing, the use of this OnStar system that I want to sell you, but it's because this will permit you, if you change business model, to be so much profitable. And then the supply, then it will be to convince also an OEM about the value of a solution that they might not understand that is so valuable. So for me, it will increase eventually also supply chain collaboration.
That's good. So it seems you have already thought about it.
Yeah.
But I suppose if you choose to go in that direction, you enter into new problems or difficulties, challenges with IPR. And if this tool is an Excel-based tool, should it be open to other
But so the idea is that, and this is what also they try out in Luleå and Southampton, is that the use of quality. This is the good thing also about the qualitative measures, is that they avoid sometimes the need of using sharing data, because if you are sharing, you use this black box tool that I don't want to. For example, let's say the OEM says to the supplier, I want you to increase your upgradability of the system, and then the supplier might say, but why? And then we say, I don't want to tell you why, but just increase the upgradability of your system from 5, that is your current solution, to 10. So, but then I don't want to tell you why, but I just give you the fact of what is important for you to develop. So the idea is that it will avoid IPR issues, because you don't have to share everything, but you share just a qualitative number. Yeah, that's what was my idea.
I think this is a very difficult field, but it interests me. I think a lot of more research needs to be done here.
Yeah.
Because usually if you have this total offering, PSS services, or PSS offerings, you need so many different skills.
Yeah.
And a combination of that, and usually comes from more than one company.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to, as you described, some sort of modularization between the functions in the total offering.
Yes.
But that could be an interesting thing. I'm not sure if you're going into that direction. But interesting you have already thought about.
Yeah, I thought, and I described it in the really last paragraph in the result. I described that robustness idea. So that, for example, if I'm a supplier and let's say I'm working with, I'm a jet engine provider, and I'm working with airlines. My customers or customers, they are airlines, and they are thinking about 50 new business models. Then this idea of the robustness is a way for the designer is a qualitative measure, but it's a way for the designer to say, my design, you don't need to tell me what kind of business models you are thinking about. But what I can say to you is that this new solution will provide high value in all the business model you are thinking about. I don't know what you are thinking about, but you have used this qualitative, so you understand what is your contribution in their business model, but you don't need to share the entire business model that they are thinking about, and that they probably want to protect.
Good, very interesting. I looked at my questions and I got answers to all of them, so I don't need to ask any more questions. So the only thing left for me then to do is to give an advice to the supervisor. And I'll be looking at this, all these paragraphs of what you should achieve to get that thesis degree. And it should be an independent work where you should show also that you can master this discussion about how far can you take a result and not and that. And I think you've answered very well today. So I would say my recommendation is that this is halfway to a PhD, definitely. Right. So thank you very much, and thank you again for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I guess we leave the word to the floor and the audience if there are any questions from Massimo.
Yes.
I have one detailed, a little bit nerdy question, and then I have one higher one. If we look at that slide, you have a relation between maximum speed of the vehicle and safety, just to take an example. And there is minus 0.3.
Yeah.
Is the relation that simple? Is it possible to have more complex relations? And do you have that already? Just to explain my question, if you have a car with a maximum speed of 10 kilometers per hour, you go on the autobahn in Germany with free speed, it can be really dangerous to have a car with that speed. So it will be beneficial to increase the maximum speed. On the other hand, if you increase it very much, so it can go with 350 kilometers an hour, it's again very dangerous.
Yes.
And in between, it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's very good that you answered this. So basically, I have to say that these are the correlations between that. But then we have that inside this, we have the coda, non-linear functions. Sorry, you have the coda non-linear functions. So the inside this there are this that are non-linear, and basically research. There has been done research about this, and so far this research they tell us that using this kind of non-linear function is the best way for mapping the customer response if we increase or decrease a customer requirement. Then more on the not philosophical but more on the purpose of this model perspective is that the purpose of these models is not really to be very, very precise, because in this sense, if we look at that coda matrix, the precision of this model, it stands for me in an optimization level, because if they are too optimized, if then you need to find the good number for it, then you will end up that you will need a lot of data, and then you will end up very long in the development process. But then, of course, as you said, if they are too rough, then we won't be able to have any discussion. But the idea of this is that if they are on the right level of complexity, and the coda matrix does it, so you end up in the level that is the optimal level of these things to be rather abstract so that they start the conversations, because this is the main purpose of this model, to start the conversations between engineers that they will never talk about this. Because as you said, it's very interesting that you mentioned this of the highways and stuff, but you have actually started these conversations that went a little bit on the details because you have seen these numbers. And this is the purpose of these models. It's not to give you, but by having the fact that you will tell me, yes, but you have modeled that, but are we actually sure about it? And so then we can, okay, but then if we are not sure about it, how can we develop a car in a different way? And this is the purpose of these models, is that to trigger the conversations. And actually, it has been very, very interesting that you asked it.
Thank you very much. So,
Thank you.
we have time for a high-level one. When you say needs here, do you actually mean customer desires? Because when we talk about human needs in the human needs research,
yes,
people claim that there are certain needs that are universal human needs, basic needs. And then there are many ways of satisfying those needs. So, for example, subsistence, affection, freedom, and so on are basic needs. And then you have here availability as an example, which is not really availability to car. It's not really a human need, but it's a satisfier for those real human needs.
Yes.
So here you never question the customer. The customer has some desires, and you just accept that, and that's what you call needs.
I think this is a very good point, because it has to be remarked that we are talking about needs in product development. So we're not talking about the needs of the human beings. So we are going back to Max needs and things like that, because that's why we're not talking about those. Because we are talking about big corporations. So I think this is a very good discussion, and I personally love this discussion, because since I'm interested in innovation, I'm interested in this. But I think that if we have, for example, a Volvo car that is thinking about, but we have this. The need of this guy is not to go to Baltimore with a car, is to have this meeting. So instead of developing a car, we might develop a Skype system where they call each other on distance. But I think that this will be too tough for a corporation like Volvo Cars to start this discussion that, okay, we shouldn't develop cars, we should develop online system for calling. So we are still talking about needs in product development, and for what I mean by this is that the tagline of the company, it remains the same. So the tagline of the company, let's say Volvo has the tagline, just guessing, but providing safety means for your mobility. Still of mobility we're talking about. So this is the idea that they are called, probably from a more theoretical perspective, it's inappropriate to call them needs. But we are talking about needs in product development of a complex, very complex product.
Sure.
Well, I've just been through this travel, so I will not have a bad question, I hope. But I was interested in your model, because when you have personas and that slide, because I think it's also very interesting to see that you can actually trace between all those different levels, that when you decide on something, you could also go back and know that, okay, we made this decision based on that, and that was based on that. And I think that's very important, because otherwise you don't know actually what you are making decisions on.
Yes.
So I think that's also a good thing with this model, that you can. And I don't know how you have worked in the project. I mean, how do they do with that? Do they sort of document every step, or how do they manage to get this traceability between those steps?
I think, I think, and this is what my interviews, and there is also in the paper C, meaning when you're talking about value, they expressly said, we don't talk about customer value the way you talk about customer value. So they say that when they talk about customer value, they talk about performances, they talk about requirements, mainly weight is the main, especially in this project, but in all the projects, or cost. So what they do is that they have these processes about the technical requirements regularly, About the cost assessment, it was done in this project quite in the last, I think they did it this February this year, so when the concept starts to get some, but they have, this is the main problem, that they never, so they don't trace too much these needs, because they have needs that they are tacit, so they don't talk about the need, this need, but they are tacit between the teams. For example, transportability, of course, they are talking about cars, so transportability. They don't talk about transportability, but it is tacit between the teams. Or safety expression involved. But for example, they will never talk about the wow factor or this. And this is a way of having them talking about these things that are a little bit softer, but they might really differentiate a car from another, having this wow factor, a car that surprises you all the time, things like that. So the idea of this process is also that of tracking, as you said, the needs, but also the wrong side. But also, I think, reporting these value reports. So let's say that we are developing something and we are thinking about 5 possible business models. And for the moment, we think that some solutions are very good for the peer-to-peer, but we don't want to start for some specific strategic decisions. We don't want to start the peer-to-peer. But if we will understand, the moment we will understand that probably the peer-to-peer is going to explode, then we can still go back and remember what was the design solution that was better for the peer-to-peer. So then we can start, instead of starting again with everything, then now we need to build a car for the peer-to-peer. Now we can start instead from the work we have already done at the time.
So in a sense, the arrows can be iterative as well?
Yes.
Or go the other way?
Yeah, the idea is that when you have the development, of course, then you have also parallel, because maybe you start other projects.
Okay, let's take one more question, Sven.
I've been working as an engineer in driving R&D projects about simulation for engineers, science. There are engineers in a lot of places in a company. There can be engineers in design, there can be engineers in production. So when you're talking about engineers, for me it feels a little bit sloppy. I assume that you mean production engineers or designers that are making drawings.
Well, I think I understand what you mean. I think, yes, we are still talking about hardware engineers, but it is that with this high level, then you can start talking also about if you need some kind of system that probably is out of your control, because if I'm developing, let's say, a door, then I'm not, of course, able to engineer a sensor system, a system of sensors in the car. But I might understand that the car needs a system of sensors in the car. I can understand that, even if I'm a door engineer. But then this then will suggest the company to ask other suppliers to work on it, and they, of course, then they will be engineers of other things.
That's cool. I would like to continue with, I made discoveries in engineering and discussions about design, discussions about the value of something with both engineers and with production personnel. And I found that it's really strong, that kind of discussions, when there is a problem.
Yeah.
But when there isn't a problem, then nobody wants to participate in the discussion.
Yeah. And I experienced this.
If you focus on that a little bit in the future research, that would be really helpful, I think, doing simulation.
I think it's very interesting what you say, and I have to say that I experienced it myself, because you have to consider that the first 5 months of my project I was with Saab. I was a Saab guy, and I got bankrupt. So I got in a situation in which the company was interested. They were talking about customer value. They were talking really, really broad about customer value, because they were understanding that that was the time of but you can't wait. You can't wait to be bad to innovate. So the idea is using these models to have engineers that they sort of have this value thinking in their minds at any time of their work. Not when the times are good and when the times are bad, but in any time of their work they have this thinking in mind. Of course, then we go again into culture things, but those for the moment they are a little bit out of my research topic. How do we change the culture of a company? Yeah, that's really quite far from my research. But the idea is that with these value models, at least, you start making some steps towards a better culture, to some extent.
Happy? Okay. I thank you for that, Massimo. I think we will, if you have more questions, you can take that upstairs in the engineering fika room, where we now will have some cake and other things. So I suggest the ones who don't know where we're going, grab hold of someone who knows where we're going, and we'll meet upstairs. But first, thank you, Massimo, thank you, Anna.
Thank you.